Tonight, somewhere on a road in America, a driver is moving at 70 miles an hour through total darkness. No streetlights, no moon, nothing in front of them but a cone of headlight reaching about 200 feet forward, and two white lines disappearing into the black beyond it. Those lines should not be visible. There is no external light source on that road. The sky is giving nothing. The road's surface absorbs more light than it returns. And yet those lines are glowing back at the driver with enough brightness to hold their lane at speed, through darkness that would otherwise be featureless and fatal. What is doing that is not paint? It is glass, millions of microscopic spheres embedded in the surface. 200 million pieces of glass per mile of road surface that catch the driver's own headlights and bend them back through physics so precise the light returns almost exactly to the eye that produced it. The driver is not being guided by the road. The road is using the driver's own light to guide them. And it has been doing this on every road in America since before most people watching this were born. Road markings in America began as ordinary paint, and for a long time, nobody thought they needed to be anything else. In daylight, the logic was sound. White paint on dark asphalt creates strong contrast. The human eye at speed picks up that contrast easily. Through the 1920s and 1930s, as painted road markings spread across the American highway system, daytime accident rates on marked roads dropped. Engineers called it solved and moved on to other problems. Nighttime was a different country entirely. Paint reflects light the way a wall reflects light, passively, in all directions at once. When headlights hit a painted road line at night, the light that comes back toward the driver is a fraction of what was sent out. And it returns at angles, spread wide enough that very little of it actually reaches the driver's eyes at the precise position they are sitting. On a wet road, a film of water sitting on top of the paint scattered the reflection further. On a rainy night, those lines were effectively invisible. Drivers were following roads they could not see, and the accident data knew it before anyone said it out loud. Night driving fatality rates through the 1930s and 1940s were running at a multiple of daytime rates that traffic volume alone could not explain. Crash investigators kept finding the same pattern. A road with clear markings, a driver not impaired, no mechanical failure. A vehicle that had simply drifted across a line that should have been visible and was not. The reports described the road as well maintained. The investigators did not have language yet for what was failing after dark. The problem had a specific technical name: retroreflectivity. The property of a surface that sends light back toward its source rather than scattering it outward. A flat painted surface has almost none of it. The question was whether retroreflectivity could be manufactured cheaply enough to apply to hundreds of thousands of miles of American pavement. The answer was sitting in a physics principle so fundamental it should have been obvious from the beginning. A glass sphere does something that a flat surface cannot. When light enters a transparent sphere, it refracts, bends inward toward the back surface of the sphere. At that back surface, it reflects, then refracts again as it exits. The geometry of a perfect sphere sends the light back almost exactly along the path it came from, not scattered, not diffused, returned toward the source. A 3M engineer named Harry Heltzer understood this in the early 1930s and spent years working out the engineering. He worked out whether glass beads small enough to embed into road markings could do the optical work at highway speeds. The manufacturing challenge was making spheres consistent enough in size and shape to be embedded at scale without losing performance. The diameter that worked sat between 60 and 800 micrometers, smaller than a grain of sand. Large enough to run the full optical sequence when headlights hit them at the low angles typical of a driver sitting behind a wheel. At that size, you can put several 100 million of them into a single mile, and nobody driving over them will feel a thing. Modern American road markings are built in two layers. The base material is thermoplastic, not paint. A compound heated until liquid applied to the road surface and allowed to cool into a marking that bonds to the pavement. Thermoplastic resists abrasion from millions of tire passes and survives temperature extremes across seasons in a way paint never could. Into the molten thermoplastic, as it is being mixed, glass beads are blended throughout the full body of the material. As the surface wears down over years of traffic, new beads are continuously exposed at the top. The marking retroreflects through its entire life. Then, as the material is laid and is still hot, a second application of beads is dropped directly onto the top. These embed into the skin of the marking and sit proud of the surface, immediately engaging with headlights from the moment the road opens. Two populations of beads doing the same job. One from the surface for immediate performance, one from depth for long-term performance. Water is the remaining problem, and the road markings know it. When rain sits on a road surface, it shifts the optical geometry. Light enters the water layer before reaching the glass, and the angles change enough that retroreflective return drops significantly. Engineers addressed this in two ways. The first is raised pavement markers. These sit high enough that rainwater does not cover them. You feel them as a slight rumble when a tire crosses them, and that vibration is intentional too. Tactile feedback for the driver. The second is profiled thermoplastic. Road markings applied in a ridged pattern so that water drains away from the bead surface. The lines you see with small regular bumps are not textured for grip. They are textured for drainage so the glass can keep doing optics. There is no power running to those lines, no battery, no connection to the grid. What happens on a dark American road every night is entirely passive. A driver produces light. That light travels forward and down. It hits 200 million glass spheres per mile. Each sphere takes that light, bends it, and returns it at almost exactly the angle it arrived from. The driver sees the line, holds the lane, arrives. The road did not light itself up for that driver. It borrowed the driver's own light for a fraction of a second and gave it back in the one direction that mattered. Harry Heltzer never had a highway named after him. What he left behind is inside the road itself, inside every white line that glows in your headlights. You made that light. The road just knew what to do with it.